Wow. Okay, the business world today. It's it's a lot, isn't it?
It really is so complex.
You've got these ethical tightropes to walk, then trying to get teams to, actually work well together.
Hmm.
Plus, competition from literally anywhere on the planet, and technology just keeps leaping ahead. It feels like you need, I don't know, a constant update feed just to stay current.
That's a good way to put it.
Mm.
And the fascinating part is how it's all connected, right? Team issues might stem from ethical lapses.
Exactly. Or global pressures force you to adopt new tech faster than you'd planned.
Precisely. It's this intricate web.
And well, that's what we're trying to untangle a bit today. We've been digging through a bunch of exam prep stuff, textbook summaries, the kind of material aimed at giving you a solid, quick grasp.
Yeah, the condensed versions.
Our goal here is really to pull out the core insights, the stuff you really need to know to make sense of how these business concepts all fit together. Think of it as maybe your guided tour through the essentials.
And we're hitting some big topics. We'll kick off with business ethics, looking specifically at, well, the lessons from the Steinhoff collapse, using frameworks like King the Fourth.
That's crucial.
Then we'll get into the different kinds of groups you find in organizations, formal, informal, how they work.
Okay.
We'll also touch on globalization, its huge impact on competition, but also on us as consumers.
Us. Yeah, that affects everyone.
And finally, we'll look at how tech, specifically things like AI and blockchain, are just fundamentally reshaping how business gets done. So yeah, quite a bit to cover.
All right, let's dive right in. Business ethics. It sounds foundational, and our sources define it pretty clearly. Basically, figuring out right from wrong within a business setting.
That's the core of it.
Mm.
And it covers so much how you treat employees, how you deal with suppliers, customers, shareholders, leadership setting the tone. It's pervasive.
Mm-hmm.
And in the South African context, the King V's report comes up a lot. It's presented as more than just rules to follow.
Right, not just ticking boxes.
Exactly. It's about actively promoting ethical conduct. Things like transparency, accountability, integrity, aiming higher than just the bare legal minimum.
Okay, so King V and ethical leadership. What are the sort of pillars? What does good look like according to this report?
Well, King V highlights a few key things. Integrity is huge, acting honestly, in good faith, for the good of the organization.
Makes sense.
Then accountability, owning your decisions and actions, being answerable for them. Fairness is another big one, making impartial choices, considering everyone affected.
Stakeholders, yeah.
And transparency, being open and clear, making information accessible. These are the cornerstones.
Got it. So then the flip side, unethical leadership. What does that typically involve based on our reading, and what happens when it takes hold?
Typically, it looks like dishonesty, avoiding accountability, maybe putting personal gain ahead of the company's health or stakeholder interests. Short-term thinking often plays a role.
And the consequences.
That can be severe. Major damage to reputation, loss of trust, and often significant financial fallout.
Which brings us, unfortunately, to Steinhoff, a really stark example of this breakdown, isn't it?
A textbook case, really.
Yeah.
The accounting fraud revelations just shattered trust. Investors, banks, even employees and customers felt betrayed. The reputational hit was massive.
And the financial impact, I remember the numbers were just staggering.
Devastating. The market value dropped by, was it over our $200 billion? Almost overnight.
Wow.
Plus lawsuits, huge debts needing restructuring.
Yeah.
It all stemmed directly from that unethical behavior at the very top. It shows just how tangible the costs of poor ethics can be.
So tying it back to King V, it really sounds like the Steinhoff disaster was a story of those core principles being completely ignored.
Absolutely.
Integrity, accountability, fairness, transparency. Seems like a failure on all fronts.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You have to think, if Steinhoff's leadership had truly followed the spirit of King V, if they'd been honest, accountable, fair, transparent about the company's real financial state,
Things might have been very different.
dramatically different. It really hammers home why these ethical guidelines aren't just nice-to-haves, they're critical.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about how organizations are structured internally specifically, these formal and informal groups that our sources distinguish between.
Right. So informal groups are interesting. They pop up naturally, organically.
Like, not on the official chart.
Exactly. Based on friendships, shared interests, just daily interactions. But they can still have a real impact on how things work, and the formal structure can impact them too. It's like the hidden social network.
Can you give some examples? What do these look like in practice?
Sure, you might have an interest group, Maybe some employees concerned about, say, pension changes or maybe advocating for greener office practices. They band together informally.
Okay.
Or friendship groups, people who always grab lunch, maybe a group that plays sports after work or fans of the same team. Purely social, but they build connections and influence morale, information flow.
Right, so that's the informal side. Then there are the formal groups or work groups. These are deliberately set up by the organization.
Yes, created for specific purposes, specific tasks. They have defined structures, clear membership.
And how do they typically operate? What are their characteristics?
Well, often the main goal is sharing information so individuals can do their jobs better. There's usually a designated leader. Skills within the group might be varied, but accountability, that often lands on the individual.
And rewards, too.
Often, yes. Individual accountability, individual rewards. The group's output is seen as the sum of what each person did.
Okay, examples of these formal groups.
A classic one is a command group that's basically a manager and everyone who reports directly to them, like the whole marketing department under the marketing director.
Got it.
Another type is a task group. These are usually put together for a specific project. They might pull people from different departments.
Cross-functional, yeah.
Exactly. And often, once the project's done, the group dissolves. It's temporary.
Now, leadership in these formal groups obviously crucial. How does a leader's approach affect things?
Oh, massively. Good leadership provides clear direction, motivation, helps communication flow, resolves conflicts, basically creates an environment where people can do their best work.
And bad leadership.
Can cause chaos, confusion, maybe micromanagement, which kills initiative, or just a lack of direction leading to wasted effort and low morale. It can really sink a team.
So what strategies can leaders use to have a more positive impact?
Our sources mention a few things. A participative style often helps involving the team in decisions. Setting really clear goals is vital.
Everyone on the same page?
Yes. Regular feedback, constructive feedback, and recognizing good work. Also, investing in people's skills and building strong working relationships. Pretty standard management practice, but essential.
I also saw mentions of self-managed teams and this idea of cohesiveness. What's the connection there?
Right. Self-managed teams have more autonomy. They make more of their own decisions. For that to work, you need strong cohesiveness.
Like team spirit,
Yeah.
unity.
Exactly. That sense of sticking together, shared purpose. Cohesive teams communicate better, support each other, stay committed. It's vital when there's less direct oversight.
And how do you build that cohesiveness, especially in a self-managed setting?
Two things stood out. Making sure the team's goals resonate with what motivates the individuals.
Giving them a personal stake.
Right. And keeping teams relatively small, maybe with some overlapping roles, encourages people to rely on each other and share responsibility.
Okay. And briefly, team norms. What are those?
Essentially, the unwritten rules, the agreed-upon standards for how the team behaves, how they interact, what's acceptable, they evolve over time.
Got it. Now, high-performing teams, what really makes them tick? Our sources list 3 key characteristics.
Yes, 3 things consistently come up. First, a common purpose and shared goals. They're united by a clear mission everyone buys into, and ideally help create.
Okay, number 1.
Second, complementary skills. The team has the right mix of abilities: technical, problem-solving, interpersonal, creative, whatever's needed to hit their objectives. Think like Belbin's team roles idea.
A diverse toolkit.
Exactly. And third, mutual accountability. Team members hold themselves and each other responsible for the team's performance. It's not just about individual tasks, it's about collective success. And rewards often reflect that too.
And why do these 3 matter so much? Why are they the recipe for high performance?
Because when you have them, you get synergy. The team achieves more together than the individuals could alone.
The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Precisely. Collaboration is smoother, the team can adapt better to bumps in the road, and critically, what they're doing lines up with the organization's overall strategy.
Okay, great breakdown. Let's switch gears again. Globalization, a huge topic. How do our sources define it at its core?
In essence, it's about the world becoming more integrated. Economies, markets, even cultures are increasingly interconnected.
Fewer barriers between countries. Yeah, exactly. Easier movement of goods, services, money, people, information across borders. Think about Apple designs in California, components from Asia, assembly elsewhere, sold globally. That's globalization in action.
And for businesses, how has this changed the competitive landscape?
It's definitely intensified competition, dramatically. Companies aren't just competing with local rivals anymore.
Now it's global.
Right. You face competitors from everywhere, including emerging markets that might have lower costs or sometimes surprisingly innovative approaches. Look at the smartphone market Huawei, Xiaomi becoming huge global players, challenging the established names.
Good example. And what about for us, the consumers? How has globalization affected our behavior?
We've become, well, way more informed, I think, and probably more demanding.
Because we can compare more easily.
Exactly. The internet lets you check prices, reviews, options from all over the world in seconds. So South African shoppers might look at Amazon or Shein or wherever. This puts pressure on businesses everywhere to up their game, better quality, better service, maybe more customization. We're just more globally aware as consumers now.
Okay, final major area, technology's impact. Our sources point to the fourth industrial revolution, 4IR, and specifically AI and blockchain.
Yes, 4IR is about this fusion of physical, digital, and biological spheres. And AI and blockchain are definitely key technologies driving it.
So AI, how is that changing operations?
Well, automation's a big one. AI can handle tasks previously done by humans, often faster and sometimes more accurately. Think customer service chatbots.
Available 204/7.
Right, providing instant support, answering common questions, reducing the need for massive call centers. There's just one example.
Hmm.
AI is also huge in data analysis, prediction, process optimization.
And blockchain, how does that fit in?
Blockchain strength is in secure, transparent, decentralized record keeping. It creates a shared ledger that's very difficult to tamper with.
Useful for things like supply chains.
Absolutely. Tracking goods across borders, verifying their origin, and handling blockchain provides a trustworthy, immutable record. Huge potential in logistics, finance, verifying credentials. Lots of areas.
So these aren't just small upgrades. We're talking fundamental shifts, right? New ways of doing business.
Definitely. 4IR isn't just tweaking old models, it's enabling entirely new ones. Think fintech challenging traditional banks.
Using AI for loan approvals or blockchain for payments.
Exactly. Or virtual healthcare models emerging. It's creating new industries and forcing existing businesses to adapt or risk becoming obsolete. Traditional companies have to embrace digital transformation, use data smarter, maybe rethink their whole value proposition.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, we've really covered some critical ground. The whole ethical dimension, using Steinhoff as a stark reminder.
And the importance of frameworks like King IV.
Right. Then the dynamics inside companies, formal groups, informal networks, what makes teams truly perform.
How people organize to get work done.
Then, stepping back to see the bigger picture, globalization, intensifying competition, empowering consumers.
A force that's reshaped almost every industry.
And finally, technology, AI. Blockchain, not just tools, but drivers of fundamental change in the 4IR era.
Yeah, and hopefully what comes across is how interconnected it all is. You can't really isolate these forces.
No, ethical failures impact global reputation. Tech enables new forms of global competition. Team structures need to adapt to new technologies.
It's all linked. Understanding these connections is really, I think, the key to making sense of the business world today.
Absolutely. So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. We've talked about ethics, teams, globalization, technology. If you had to bet, which one of these forces do you think will be the single biggest driver of change? The most disruptive influence on businesses over, say, the next decade?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It is. Definitely something worth mulling over. Which one has the most power to reshape things?
A great question to end on. It forces you to weigh their impacts and look ahead. And while the landscape keeps shifting, so the quest to understand it definitely continues.